back to the first pairing, the Canucks first pairing, Hughes and Hronek. You and I were talking about this briefly before the show started. You want to talk about them?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of attention, of course, on the blue line, understandably, because it's looked really shaky since Carson Soucy went down. Now, I understand the concern within the bottom four, and that absolutely is still an area of with question marks moving forward. But I think the part that needs to be highlighted a little bit more is that the top pair, which was so dominant, so electric in the beginning of the year, has recently started to sputter a little bit. It feels like the workload in terms of how much of a burden they're carrying for this blue line is starting to catch up, because I'm looking at it right here. Quinn Hughes in the last 5 games is a proxy for the top pair. High danger chances are 26-13 in favor of the opposition, and the Canucks have been outscored 7-4 at 5-on-5. We're just not used to a stretch like that from Quinn Hughes. He's been A+ offensively, and we're seeing some of that magic. Again, another moment in that Seattle game. But they're being hemmed in their own zone for a lot of shifts. They're having more difficulty than usual breaking the puck out. And I don't know, it feels like he's had some giveaways that have led to some goals against. I mean, I believe
When you say he's, do you just mean Quinn Hughes?
not Quinn, not just Quinn. Hronek's been part of it, or whoever he's been.
Yeah. And I think
I'm just using Hughes as a proxy of, like, when he's on the ice, that's Canucks top pairs on the ice.
For sure, absolutely. In that Seattle game, Filip Hronek plays a career high 29:03 of ice time. That's higher than Quinn Hughes. That was the highest of any Canuck in that game. That's the highest Hronek's ever played in his career. With that pairing, I almost wonder if the teams are playing them harder on the forecheck, if they're playing them differently on the forecheck, because look, like Frank Corrado, we saw him with the breakdowns on Twitter of look how good the pairing is at switching and switching off. And that's almost like a counter to zone defense. I know that's more about the offensive zone, but you're going to make those adjustments in the offensive zone. And you're also going to make them when you're pressuring on the breakout, because that's something they've done so well, is break the puck out. Teams are going to adjust to that. I wonder if they're getting scouted differently, played harder, played differently. I want to say it's a culmination of the workload is super high on these guys. They're carrying a blue line right now. They are absolutely carrying that blue line. The workload, the team's changing what they're doing against them. I think it's all just kind of adding up. And what you're seeing is what you are breaking down right now with they're giving up a lot of chances.
Yeah, and the point isn't, let me be very clear, Hughes has arguably been the best player in the NHL overall, not just among defensemen. The point isn't to point the finger at him.
Exactly.
But it's just a reflection that, considering how top heavy this blue line is, especially when you compound it with Soucy's injury, when you remove the safety net of this top pair has been arguably the best in the NHL, and now it's slipping, and now they're losing their matchups the last handful of games, in large part because of how heavy a workload they're carrying, that puts an even extra sort of burden or pressure on the bottom four, which isn't going to be able to win their matchups.
Yeah, like, it's funny because we're bringing this up. The answer isn't, oh, you just play the next guys more. Like, we know that's not the answer.
Yeah.
It would be great if that were the answer. If the answer was just, okay, well, let those guys have a night off. They can't have a night off. Like, they can't have a night right now where they're playing under 23 minutes. Those days, maybe against San Jose, because I think that was the last time. I'd have to go look at it. But I remember in that game, they were able to kind of limit Hughes and Hronek's ice time together. I wonder what happens tonight. Is there anything else that you want to say about the pairing and their struggles? Like, what, like in your mind, what's led to it? Is it just what I said with just workload, how they're getting scouted? Because you brought up that they're one of the top pairings in the league. I think they're not going to benefit from word getting around that they're one of the best pairings in the league.
Yeah.
And I think to this point in the season, word probably has gotten around. And maybe in years past, you're looking at how you shut down Quinn Hughes if you're an opposing team and you're trying to work on that. But when you have a top pair, I just wonder how much the game planning changes for opposing teams where they look at, okay, these two like to do this, they like to do this. Let's see how we can change that on our forecheck. And I think they have less time and space than they have earlier in the season.
Yeah.
I think that's also a factor.
I also think the forwards need to help them out a little bit more on these breakouts because again, when Hughes is getting the puck behind the net, it feels like, as you alluded to, there's just less time and space to make a maneuver. It feels like he has less exit options. And this is where it helps to have your wingers, your centermen coming deep. That top pair shares the ice a lot with the JT Miller line. The Miller line is a monster when the blue line is able to exit quickly, get to the red line, dump it in, and then it feels like DiGiuseppe, Miller, and then Best are sort of hanging around the slot. They can really get pucks back in those situations. Yep. But I think the area where that line maybe doesn't excel as much in is helping out on breakouts itself because they don't have a speedy transition forward, right? Miller comes in deep and he can make those outlet passes. I've liked a lot of those at points in the season, but he's not the type of guy that's going to come deep, wheel around, and skate it out himself. And that's certainly not going to be Brock Besser. It's not going to be Phil DiGiuseppe. So, yeah, I'm not sure if there's something the coaching staff can do to shift things up strategically, but they're having to spend way too much time defending. And when you're already logging heavy minutes, that just it makes it really difficult to be at your best all the time.
It also makes it a lot easier to compound mistakes, right? Like we've talked about that numerous times this year and how the team's been good at avoiding that. We've seen that pairing have their mistakes compounded because it's just what's happening right now. Like it's tough.
But also we're having this discussion about the blue line and what a big difference it makes to lose Soucy, and that's fair. But it's also worth pointing out good teams are able to overcome injuries like this.
Yep, absolutely.
The New York Rangers have not stopped rolling. They are one of the hottest teams in the NHL. They've been missing Adam Fox the last handful of games. They've had Eric Gustafsson, a guy who from the bottom pair has been able to elevate and give them steady minutes, and they haven't skipped a beat. Vegas in the early portion of the year, when they went unbeaten for so long, a stretch of those games, they were without Martinez for a while. They were without Pietrangelo. They were without like 3 of their regular top 6D for some of those games. You look at Ottawa, they've had stretches where Shabbat hasn't played, where Brandstrom hasn't played, and they're closer to the Canucks' range where they've been scuffling a little bit. But look, this is what happens, and teams that have lost better defensemen have been able to. I mean, look at Florida.
Yep.
They don't even have that good of a blue line, and they've managed without Montour and Ekblad. They've managed well. Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been playing
goals. Five goals on the season.
He's been playing top pair minutes on the right side, and that's not just, oh, look at OEL bouncing back. Yes, he has bounced back, but good teams have the type of sort of help around them in terms of the forwards as two-way assistants, the overall speed that you play with as a 5-man unit, the overall structure that you can overcome that. And so this is something the Canucks have to overcome. This can't just be something that you look at and go, well, what can you do? They lost Soucy, and their only solution is to go out and trade for somebody because look, it's not easy to just in mid-November go out and trade for a guy. This is something that you have to work out internally.
Paging Ethan Bear. Hopefully Ethan Bear heals up. He's been on the ice. We've seen that. He's on the ice. Hopefully he heals up soon. And the Canucks are able to go out and get them some Ethan Bear, because your season can't just go to the gutter because you lost Carson Soucy. Like it can't. You can't have the start that they did. Every Canucks fan on the internet is talking their crap, and then they lose Carson Soucy and the season's over. Like, let's not forget this team started the season without Carson Soucy.
Yeah, that's a good
point. They started the year without Carson Soucy on a heater. Look, hey, they are just tired. They are just tired. That is the explanation that we're going to keep going with. But now the conversation shifts to, okay, well, everybody's tired, and everybody's tired in the playoffs. What are you going to do then? You're going to come out and to their credit, no player has used the tiredness as an excuse. In fact, they've all said the opposite, that whatever, if we're tired, doesn't matter. It can't be an excuse. To their credit, that is not coming from the players that, oh, we're tired. That the players aren't using that as an excuse. So I shouldn't have even said that. But still,
And we're
it's just,
also-
they were without Susie. Come on.
And we're also, as much as we have been highlighting the concerns, they're 12-5-1.
Exactly.
They have a plus 30 goal differential. Yes, we're going to focus on more of these recent trends because that's what happens. We can't continue to talk about wins when they haven't been winning a lot recently. But it's also okay for them to go through a stretch like this.
Sure.
We're not saying the sky is falling down. It's
Absolutely.
definitely not. 12-5-1, plus 30 goal differential. Still, I mean, if you told any Canucks fan that this is going to be their record with the majority of our way through November, I mean, you take that in a heartbeat.
Still the best start in franchise history. Should also point that out. Like it's
Is
still
it still even after
still
you count?
is. Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
So
maybe after Seattle, it's not. Maybe after I have to fact check it. I know at 12-4-1, which is what they were before Seattle. Best start in franchise history still.
Yeah.
After that many games, 17 games.